What's up, everybody? Today we're going to talk about the fight tonight, predictions with Clarissa Shields versus Perkins in her hometown of Flint, Michigan. Salute to Clarissa and her opponent. They will be fighting at heavyweight. And we're also going to recap last night's fight, David Benavidez versus David Morrell, and more when we come right back. Welcome to another episode of Ring Walk Boxing Podcast. I am Bean, and I want to say what's up to everybody in the chat room, and thanks for all your patience, and thanks for all your support coming in daily, uh, every week, and showing love and support on this podcast, on this platform. So shout outs to Graham Cook. I appreciate you. Greetings to you, Cuzzo. You're here every week. And shout outs to my guy over in Canada. Canada loves Canada Boxing Channel. I know you love your boxing just as well as I do. So we'll go ahead and start jumping into the recap of last night and talk about some of the fights from last night. I had to make some runs, so I kind of was able to catch up watching some of the highlights of certain fights. But I saw the entire fight of David Benavidez versus David Morrell. So what I could see with the Pitbull Cruz fight was a very fiery fight with him and his opponent. Letting it all hang out and really going for the gusto in their showdown. Whenever you fight Pitbull, you better know he is who he is. Just like a Pitbull, he will seek and destroy and be right there, front and center. He has a good chin. He tucks it in. He has doesn't have a lot of he has a very short neck and he's stocky, so his shoulders are kind of up. And it's hard for you to get a clean shot on him. So he always going to bring a fight to where you're going to see action. And if you like action, definitely you want to follow Pitbull Cruz in his career. Because win, lose, or draw, he's going to give you action every time. Also, on that same card, you had Rosario, who was one of his opponents in the past was Charlo, and Charlo dropped him with a body shot and was able to end that fight. So he shows again in this past fight last night that he doesn't take body shots very well. He was hurt by his opponent with a body shot, and that seems to be the vulnerability and the area you would want to exploit if you're fighting somebody like Rosario. His midsection, his core is not the best with taking shots like that. Now, you also had the main event that was everything you could want, man. Everything you could want. Doing the research I did on David Morrell, being at 175 pounds, being a person who's acclimated to that weight in the light heavyweight division, I kind of knew it wasn't going to be a walkover fight for David Benavidez. But there's a lot of people saying things about David Benavidez. But understand, this was like his only his second fight at this new weight division. So he's getting used to the extra weight. He has to get used to the conditioning because as we saw last night in the championship rounds, he looks like he's getting somewhat fatigued. So those extra pounds and learning how to carry that muscle mass, he has to get used to that, and he needs to get used to it very soon. So the specialists that are doing his conditioning, maybe he needs to do ride a bike, maybe he needs to swim a lot more just to get his oxygen because as he steps up, it won't get easier. It's going to get a lot harder. So when he does step up to somebody like Bivol, who can go 12 rounds easily and keep bouncing on his feet, somebody like Bivol could probably go 15 rounds as a light heavyweight. So my biggest concern with David Benavidez, although I'm a fan, I'm never going to be biased to say he's going to beat this person, he's going to beat that person. I see the flaws in David Benavidez from last night. So I'm keeping it real. I feel like he needs an expert to help his conditioning because that will be a problem fighting Bivol, a person who's at 175 already, who can fight 15 rounds, and like an Energizer Bunny, he has plenty of stamina, plenty of conditioning, plenty of punch output, plenty of moving on his feet all around the ring all night. That could be an issue and be problematic for the Mexican monster, David Benavidez. So I do want to respond back to everybody who was on FB commenting on my post. I like to try to keep it straight down the middle and keep it as real as I can. Yes, I do see flaws in David Benavidez. Um, but the post was more or less for me saying that I felt after seeing the fight with Morrell and the fight just prior to Morrell at 175, I feel like David Benavidez is too much of a force for Canelo Alvarez. That was my point. Then everybody else started to interject talking about Beterbiev and Bivol. Yes, I do agree. Bivol's probably too much for him, and Beterbiev's pressure and chin and his engine would also be an issue for David Benavidez. But to my point, I feel like David Benavidez is too much for Canelo Alvarez. And I think that if Canelo Alvarez stepped up to 175, he wouldn't last long at all. That's my whole point. That he needs to stay at 168 because at 175, after seeing what Bivol did to him, I can see David Benavidez probably stopping him and Beterbiev stopping him much earlier than David Benavidez would. So that's my opinion concerning those guys in the division of the light heavyweight 175-pound division that has been very, very much a very good division. Shout outs. I also like Anthony Yardy. Anthony Yardy at 175 is another person that would give Canelo the blues, in my opinion. You can let me know in the chat room whether you agree or disagree. If we're talking Canelo, and say, for instance, he wants to end his career, go up to 175 and fight these guys, who at 175 do you see Canelo beating? I would say, unfortunately, not one. I would say that David Benavidez, Anthony Yardy, Beterbiev, and Bivol all would give Canelo issues. I mean, Bivol already did once in the first fight, so I see a second fight being much the same. I see it being much the same, pretty much. So that's that. Morrell showed a lot of heart as well last night. a good chin. Southpaw, left hand. He stayed busy, but as we saw, the combinations of David Benavidez were pretty fast. He threw one or two punches more every exchange. If Morrell threw two or three, Benavidez would throw four. So he always stayed a step ahead. A lot of his shots were power shots. So that is one reason I could see that David Benavidez would get somewhat tired. He was dishing out a lot of punishment only at 175, his second fight. So he's getting used to the extra weight. And like I said, he's throwing power punches. He's not really throwing just a few punches here and there, like a couple of taps and jabs. He was throwing a lot of power behind those body shots and stuff. I agree, Joe. Joe says everybody won. Warriors. I agree, man. Boxing won last night. That was one of the best cards I've seen in a long time by PBC. So shout outs to them over there and to Prime, to Amazon Prime, who they network with now. Every fight on that card was action packed. And the icing on the cake was David Benavidez versus David Morrell. Now, at 175, there's a whole lot that David Benavidez needs to work on. And like I said, first and foremost, I feel like his conditioning for the late rounds, and also, besides his stamina, his defense. Stop dropping his hands so much, because there were certain shots that Morrell caught him with that if Beterbiev caught him with those same shots, he may not get back up from. So he needs to stay off the ropes, and he needs to work on his defense and a little more head movement, because he does not want to get caught clean too many times by somebody like Beterbiev, because if he does, it could be a early night. Beterbiev is not one that you want to take lightly. Um, you just don't do that with him. He's proven it so many times. People like Anthony Yardy, uh, opponents like Callum Smith, opponents like Joe Smith Jr., none of them could beat Beterbiev. They gave a good effort, but when it came to Beterbiev, he would just overpower you. He'll walk you down. He'll take your best shots, and all that you give to him, thinking it's gonna make him make him second guess or think again about coming in. He's something different. Kind of like that Terminator mentality. You think if you hit him with a 1-2, he's gonna be like, "Oh, let me make adjustments. Let me do something." But nah, you'll hit him twice with everything you have, and he's right in front of your face. People like that are scary. You see a chin like Beterbiev, it kind of reminds you of a Marvin Hagler, a person that you hit him with all the power you have, flush, with all your body weight behind it. And Marvin Hagler is still right in front of your face after you throw everything, you throw the kitchen sink at that man, and he's standing right in front of you like a man possessed. That's a scary person. And Beterbiev has that type of mindset. We refer to um, David Benavidez as the Mexican monster, but if you want to give the quote unquote cliche monster title to somebody, I would have to give that to Arthur Beterbiev. If you have not seen this man, for those who may not follow boxing as much, get on YouTube, look up Arthur Beterbiev highlights, and you will see what the fuss is about, and you will see why he is so dangerous. His style is so different. I call him the ninja because he throws these awkward short chopping punches like a ninja or something. Like it's just like it's like when he's throwing his punches, it's not your typical boxer. But every punch he lands on you, it does something to you, uh, and you see it in the opponent's body language. Every time he lands, it's like, oh man, what did I just get hit with? The power of Arthur Beterbiev is a different level, and his mindset is go in there and get you up out of there. He's not there to box you. He's not there to go 12 rounds. He's not there to win on points and win rounds. He's there to seek and destroy. That's the mindset of Arthur Beterbiev. And in my opinion, right now, I don't see anybody at 175 that's going to beat that is going to beat Beterbiev. I just don't. If you think there is somebody who can beat Arthur Beterbiev at 175 pounds, please drop an opponent's name in the chat room. If there's anybody out there that can stop Arthur Beterbiev. Now, speaking of the 175-pound division, let's talk about the future of David Benavidez at 175 pounds. Who do you think will be a perfect opponent for him? Because you can't rush Benavidez at 175 because as we can see, right now he's having it a little tough. I feel like Beterbiev is way too big of a jump for him right now. I think he would need to fight a few more fights to see where he's at. Maybe like 2 or 3 more fights before fighting the likes of Beterbiev. So who at 175 would be the perfect matchup for David Benavidez? I would say maybe Anthony Yarde, because Anthony Yarde doesn't mind stepping in that square circle and in that phone booth, and he'll work it out with you. We saw that with Yarde versus Beterbiev. He kind of went toe to toe and got into a brawling match and an exchange. So we probably see some of that same tenacity with David Benavidez versus Yarde. A lot of toe to toe action. But one thing I noticed about David Benavidez being so tall and rangy, he can slip and sneak in those uppercuts really fast for a guy that tall. And you could see last night, although he didn't drop Morrell, there were times that he was struggling. Morrell was struggling to stop that same punch that was hurting him from David Benavidez. I want to say it was his eyesight, as Big Bro was saying last night. It was his eyesight to where he really couldn't see because he was hurt. You know what I'm saying? His eye was hurt on that side, and his vision probably wasn't 20/20 on that side of his eye because he caught a lot of punches to that side. So I'll say this: if you missed, and you're a boxing fan, and you missed last night's action, definitely make sure you look it up. Get on YouTube or whatever, and look up David Morrell versus David Benavidez. the fight was it was bananas. They went all out. It definitely was a war. And if you paid your money, you got your money's worth. If you were there live at the fight, you got a great show with those guys last night. So from this point on, I don't know what David Morrell will do. He suffered his first, I believe that's his first defeat, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm pretty sure at 175, there's a lot he can do. Maybe the guys like Callum Smith or Joe Smith Jr. if he's still boxing at 175, we can see them versus David Morrell because I saw positive uh, influence on both ends, whether it was David Morrell or David Benavidez. They both had good moments last night. They both show they have pretty good chins. And although it was ruled a knockdown late rounds of the fight. I personally don't feel like that was a clean knockdown. I felt like David Benavidez fell due to being off balance. If you run it back and see it, that punch didn't look that flush enough to drop um, David Benavidez. It looked like he was off balance and fell. So of course people are using that on social media. It's trending because people want to show a picture of David Benavidez on the canvas. But like I said, it looked like a slip. But I digress. It is what it is. Um, so tonight we have a another special event on a Sunday night. Sunday night fights are rare. And for my people overseas, for us over here in the States of America, Sunday nights generally are when we look at football. But tonight we have female boxing, heavyweight, main event, none other than hailing from Flint, Michigan, Midwest America, Clarissa T Rex Shields versus her opponent out of Houston, Texas, Danielle Perkins. Now, the thing about this is, I've done some film studies on Danielle Perkins. She's a heavyweight in the women's boxing. She is about 6 foot tall. So it was being said that Clarissa said when she did a face off that Danielle Perkins was a lot bigger in person than what she thought. I mean, she's tall, 6 foot tall, and although she's not the fastest heavyweight female boxer, when Perkins lands those punches, they're excuse me, they're these like thudding punches. They are the type of punches that you saw in men's boxing when you saw maybe like a George Foreman landing on his opponent. The footage I saw of Perkins was made my eyes big, like whoa. Clarissa, uh, what's up? 1831. And like I said, Joe, what's up? Make sure you hit the like buttons, everybody in the chat room. Hit the thumbs up, please. Infinity Boxing 78. At what time does Shields versus Perkins start? If you're over here in America, I'm not sure where you are, but if you go based on America, Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. That'll be the undercard. The main event won't be till like 10:30 or 11 o'clock tonight. If you're in the Eastern Standard Time zone here in America, you say Infinity Boxing 78. I don't know, but Clarissa opponent is too big for her. Does she have had a chance to hold Perkins' power? Great question to ask. You got to ask yourself that, man. So that's a great question, and I was about to elaborate on that, man. So Perkins has a lot of power. Like I said, she doesn't have the most speed, but she's long enough, rangy enough to get within the range, to move around that ring, to um to close the distance, to cut off the ring. Clarissa is an athletic fighter, but Clarissa is stepping up. I believe this is her second time at the heavyweight division, but she's fighting a much taller opponent with a lot more punching power than herself. So Clarissa's key to victory would be her key to victory would be to use her footwork, to use her ring generalship. Everything she's ever learned from the Olympics back in the day, from the amateurs, when Clarissa was a young girl growing up in Flint, Michigan, she's going to need to use everything she's ever learned from her younger years all the way up until tonight and use every weapon in her arsenal because she's fighting the much bigger fighter, the heavier, the natural, the natural, naturally heavier fighter, and a fighter who could really hit. Clarissa does not want to take too many punches from Perkins. She's going to need to negate. I can't remember if Perkins was a southpaw or if she's orthodox. But Clarissa, she has ring IQ. Whatever she does, she must negate the power hand of Perkins. So if Perkins is right-handed, she needs to be able to roll and move around to try to slip that right hand. If Perkins is a left hand power puncher, she needs to negate her left hand. She needs to stay off the ropes as much as possible. Don't get trapped on those ropes because the bigger lady is going to try to use her size to bully Clarissa. So Clarissa has to be very, very smart, very, very strategic, very, very methodical in every sense of the word tonight because she's definitely going to be fighting someone that could end the fight within the distance, you know. And we've never seen Clarissa not make it to the final bell of a fight. She's always made it through all rounds. Most women boxing, 8 rounds, maybe 10 rounds at the most. So I'm not sure if tonight's going to be a 10 round fight or an 8 round fight. But for Clarissa to make it to the final bell, she has to be on form. Defensively, responsible, head movement, feints, parry. She has to do everything in her might because she's fighting a beast. And I think she knows that. She said it in the press conference. The way she put it out there was this. Clarissa Shields said, "I understand I'm fighting somebody who's very powerful, somebody with a lot of size and reach, but pretty much that her speed and her skills are going to be the defining factor." One thing about Clarissa, I don't ever feel that she's ever taken any opponent lightly. I think she takes every opponent very, very seriously. So that's not really my concern. Um, can any fighter be somewhat arrogant or overly cocky or whatever? I mean, yeah, possibly. But I do see Clarissa as being responsible tonight and on point tonight. And she won't have a choice, but she'll have to pull out the best performance of her career tonight. Tonight needs to be the best performance of her career when she's fighting Danielle Perkins. So I'm wishing much respect and love to both ladies tonight. And I'm a little biased, yes, because I'm in the Midwest. And I am a fan of Clarissa Shields. So I kind of am going to gravitate towards her. But if I'm being totally honest, bias aside, the fact that I've followed Clarissa ever since she did a documentary on her life, and now she has a movie out about her life. If I put all that to the side and I look at it for what it is, she's in a very dangerous position right now. And if I'm not mistaken, Clarissa holds all the belts. So a loss tonight, she could lose all those belts tonight. So she understands the seriousness of this fight tonight. And I'm hoping somehow she can pull it off. But I mean, hey, when you say you're great and you want to constantly prove your greatness, these are the situations you will eventually find yourself in when you're at the top pinnacle in the upper echelon in the sport of boxing. We've seen Clarissa do a couple of MMA fights, so she's somewhat multifaceted and wearing different masks. And just to stir the pot a little bit, because people people love controversy. If you saw her entrance, getting to the to the event, you saw Clarissa Shields walk in with Papoose. So some of you know the backstory with that, with Remy Ma, this, that, and the other. So it is what it is. But um, tonight is gonna be fireworks. But I think the last thing that Clarissa wants to do is get off. She wants to stay on her square. She doesn't want to. She wants to be the one to set the tone. Clarissa has to set the pace. She can allow Perkins to dictate the rhythm of the fight. Oh yeah, Infinity Boxing 78. You said you're on the East Coast. Oh yeah, man, no problem. You're welcome. 90 Baby JT. Perkins by stoppage straight left. Hey man, uh I have no qualms about that, about your opinion, my brother, because it's like she's dangerous, man. I think if you've seen, for those who followed or seen some footage of Perkins, this is a very, very dangerous fight for Clarissa tonight. A very dangerous fight. And the only time we've seen Clarissa truly bothered was her fight with Hannah Gabriels. Hannah Gabriels gave her toughest fight. Savannah Marshall, she did pretty good, but I think Hannah Gabriels gave more of a gave more resistance and made Clarissa go through a lot more adversity. And Hannah Gabriels if I'm not mistaken, is the only female boxer that had dropped Clarissa in her professional career. So if Hannah Gabriels could knock her down with a punch she did not see coming, I would hate to see Clarissa get caught by something of the same nature from the bigger heavyweight, um, Danielle Perkins. I am a little nervous for Clarissa tonight, just to keep it 100. But I know that if she didn't feel that she could win this fight, she wouldn't step in that ring. That's just Clarissa for you. Um, and if you've seen her movie, which I'm not going to give out too much about it, it kind of like a situation where she talks about growing up and she used to spar with guys, like some of the boys in the neighborhood. So that probably just made her even that much more better because she did that. Um, so make sure that you tune in for that fight tonight because it's going to definitely be electrifying. I'm pretty sure the arena up in Flint, Michigan is going to be crazy because you're going to have Danielle Perkins out of Houston, Texas. I'm pretty sure a lot of her family and her fan base traveled up to Michigan to be at the event. But then Clarissa being at home, and finally, I want to say the first time to fight and actually fight in the city of Flint because she's fought in Detroit a few times. But this time she's actually fighting in her own hometown. And she puts on for Flint. She loves Flint. She's going to represent. So hopefully tonight she can hold it down because, like I said, man, uh, in most cases, I would say 60-40 Clarissa Shields. I give 60% to Clarissa Shields, 40 to her opponent. This time, it might be in reverse. It might be 60% Perkins, 40% Clarissa. Or it could be 50-50, right down the middle. This is a tough call, man, because, like I said, if it was at the weight class she was at before, you kind of could say, okay, she's gonna hold it down, but she's stepping up in weight, so she's gotta carry more muscle mass. All that matters, man. All that extra bulk and muscle tone and all that stuff, and you're stepping up in weight. That could definitely slow down Clarissa. And Clarissa's known for her athleticism. She's known for her faster footwork. She's known for her movement. So you don't want to see her main gift not be at its peak because she's carrying more weight than she's normally used to carrying, or that in the late rounds when she needs to be able to move, she's slowing down significantly and making herself an easier target for Danielle Perkins. You got to look at this whole situation all around. You know what I'm saying? From every perspective. Man, it's gonna be another banger tonight. Like I said, Sunday night fight, it goes down. So shout outs to Flint, Michigan, for sure, and shout outs to my hometown, 513 Cincinnati, Ohio, USA. If you're a boxing fan, make sure you get on the zone and check out that fight. Clarissa Shields versus Perkins. Heavyweight. They put it all on the line tonight. So make sure you're ready. Um Now, in other news in boxing, here soon, another fight I've been anticipating was Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker. A lot of people, I would say, majority of the people I've seen comments about or making posts pertaining to those two, a lot of people seem to think that Daniel Dubois will stop or knock out Joseph Parker. And like I said in the past on my podcast, I couldn't, I can't say that that's not realistic because Daniel Dubois can pop, he can punch, he can knock out a horse. People like that have a special power. A lot of people would say that Daniel Dubois is the hardest punching heavyweight. You could argue Deontay Wilder might be, but if you look at their opponents and opposition, Daniel Dubois has knocked out higher and better competition than Deontay Wilder has. So it's going to be a dangerous fight for Joseph Parker, and much like Clarissa Shields, being the faster fighter against a bigger puncher, I think Joseph Parker will use all his attributes. All his attributes, man, like his defensive, his guards up, his pivots, his head movement left and right, his foot movement, all that, man. He knows that Daniel Dubois is there to seek and destroy. That's no secret. He knows Daniel Dubois is not coming to punch for punch and like shuffle around and tap tap and move. Nah, he knows Daniel Dubois is coming to really try to get him up, to try to get him up out of there. With that in mind, I think we'll see the very best version of Joseph Parker. He's gonna be on form, and he will be on his Dean when it comes to fighting Daniel Dynamite Dubois. So I'm very much looking forward to these guys getting it on. They had their sit down in their press conference. Uh, it wasn't the official press conference, but it was more like a sit down. And they had their back and forth. And Joseph Parker told Dubois, "You talk too much," you know. And Dubois has always been one to where he's never been a big talker, but ever since he's won the fight against Anthony Joshua, it's like he came out of his shell and he's found his like a newfound confidence. So he's been a lot more vocal than you know him to normally be. Um, so that fight is another fight I'm looking forward to. Um, this month in February, and from February to next month, this year starting off in 2025 has been off the chain in the sport of boxing. A lot of good fights going down. Soon we'll have the Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr. We'll have Shakur Stevenson versus Kid Austin. So there's a lot of good fights that are they're in the making, and I plan to see each one of them if I can, because that's what I do. Um, so we're gonna see tonight, man. Infinity Boxing 78. We're gonna see if that's how it goes, or actually, I'm sorry, 90s baby JT. You say Perkins by stoppage. Yeah, man. We're gonna see if that's how it goes down tonight. Will she stop Clarissa Shields, or will Clarissa Shields win on points? But then again, Clarissa Shields in her last heavyweight fight, she dropped her opponent. So we saw a certain fire, and we saw her carry her weight good, and her power transcended from a smaller weight class to a heavier weight class. So if she can have that type of power that she showed in her last win at heavyweight, if Clarissa can bring that same power tonight, we may see Perkins on the canvas, possibly. But we'll see how good of a chin Perkins has as well tonight. Um, man, these are the moments in boxing you look forward to seeing happen. And there's never a situation in boxing, in most cases. Well, I'll put it this way: when you got the one of the best fighting the best, or one of the best stepping up in weight class to another fighter, you never know how the outcome will be, because it's not like a person's fighting somebody who doesn't really have a name, and this other person has a huge name. They've done a lot, and they're just fighting somebody you might consider a C-level opponent, or respectfully call him a journeyman in boxing. Nah, this is definitely a case of Clarissa daring to be great tonight, and in boxing, upsets happen. So you kind of got to be open minded to say, well, hey, I wish the best for Clarissa, but if I'm being totally honest, you know, it may not go as we plan for it to go. You know, but I would love to see her win, especially at home. You know, and we got a poll down here, y'all. Um, we'll have a poll with Shields versus Perkins, and that way you could kind of say between Shields and Perkins who would win. You know, let it be known in the chat. On the poll. All right, I'm trying to think what else went down in boxing. There's a lot going down, and sometimes I just be thinking of so many different things, or something will slip my mind at some point in time. Oh, okay, yeah. Let's also talk about last night. In the undercard of Morrell versus David Benavidez, uh, the rematch with Fulton last night. Figueroa versus Fulton. Fulton had beat Figueroa before, and last night uh, we saw Stephen Fulton hailing out of Philadelphia, uh, trying to hold it down with his East Coast style. He had the Timberlands on in the ring. They were like Timberland boxing shoes, and he had on like these shorts that were kind of like look like jeans or whatever. So he had his own style or whatever. So there's been a lot of talk about that on social media when you saw him in Timbos last night. Fulton looked pretty good though. I did have a few concerns with his performance. He was able to edge every round pretty much against Figueroa, but he took a lot of unnecessary punishment. He caught a lot of counter punches from Figueroa. Uh, he should move a little more, and he needs to stay off the ropes. He was on the ropes too much, and he wasn't moving enough. And his head movement and his guard should have been up more. He was taking too much punishment from Figueroa, and once he steps up, and in opposition, or he does a rematch with Inoue, who he lost against before, I don't see him beating Inoue performing the way he did last night. That's not to say he didn't perform good last night, but it was a lot of mental and a lot of defensive mistakes. And I can see somebody like Inoue, who's somewhat of a um, very scientific, very smart fighter, high ring IQ, and all that. He's going to pick up on all of those small mistakes when he does his film study. Because if I can see it, I know a professional boxer is going to see it. If I can see it, so he needs to tighten up those loose ends. Because if Fulton fights Inoue, he will lose again in a rematch. So we'll see what's next for Stephen Fulton in boxing. Hopefully, at some point, he'll get his rematch and he will fight Inoue part 2 and be victorious. That's a very big ask, but anything is possible. Anything is possible in boxing. So, again, I want to thank everybody who showed up tonight for this live. And as you know, and for those who don't know, every Sunday I'll be going live at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the USA. So if you're in a different part of the world, just put in your Google search, what is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States of America, and it should give you your time zone so you can align it with my time zone if you want to follow us live here on Ringwalk Boxing Podcast live stream. And also for those who are viewing, or if you're viewing and you can let somebody else know, like family member, friends, to hit thumbs up, to subscribe here at YouTube at our podcast, Ringwalk Boxing Podcast. But also for those that are seeing this, we like your opinions. We like to interact with people that are following the channel. So if you follow me on my social media, on my IG, on my TikTok, on Facebook, Twitter, just inbox, send me a message, or even in the comments here, just say, hey, I would like a link, and we will get a link over to you if you want to actually join in on a live stream, almost like a conference where we could all talk about boxing. So we'll be back next week at the same time, and we'll recap Clarissa Shields versus Perkins. Next week, we're going to recap the fight from tonight, next Sunday. So sit back, grab your popcorn, your drinks, or whatever you're going to do. If you're grilling out tonight or whatever, just get ready for the Clarissa Shields fight tonight. And tune in next week here so we could talk about the aftermath of Clarissa Shields versus Danielle Perkins right here on your favorite boxing podcast, Ring Walk Boxing Podcast. So we'll catch you on the next round. Peace.